Hi guys, welcome back to Bows Fan TV, and today we're back with another video doing the match preview for tomorrow's game against Sligo Rovers at the Showgrounds. Looking to get over Monday's heartbreak by getting back to winning ways here. Very disappointing to lose in that way on Monday. In a game where we were very good in the first half, went in 1-0 up at half time, and we're looking to continue that, but unfortunately couldn't take our chances that we created, and ultimately we lost the game late on, and it was a really tough one to take, but we've got to put that behind us now and focus on tomorrow in a game where, it's a good chance to get back to winning ways against Sligo side, who are off the back of a very good win against Shamrock Rovers, but I've also had a couple of dodgy results as of late. Losing 4-1 at home to Galway was a particularly bad one. It probably wasn't, a 4-1 game. They did create chances in that game, but to concede the goals that they did, well, it was a real, big surprise. But they are capable of pulling off a result. They went to Talca Park and got a hard-earned point, and drew with Pats at home, and they've had a couple of good wins at home as well. So they are a team that on their day can turn up and cause you problems, but if we cast our minds back to February, we went here and won 4-0 in a game where it was probably our most convincing performance of the season. We were really on top in that game, and really put them to the sword. And if we can play anything like we did in that game, then you'd be hoping we could get another 3 points. But it's not going to be easy this time around, or any easier. We were off the back of a disappointing result, and before that we'd won 3 in a row and put in some really good dominant performances, and a couple of those were away from home as well, Dundalk and Galway. So we look at our away record, over the course of the season so far. I think it's up there with one of the best in the league. So maybe looking to keep that up, of course. But it's really just all about responding from the disappointment of Monday, and getting back to winning ways. So onto the team, Casper's going to be in goal, of course. Into the defence, Dara Power right back, two centre halves. I'd probably stick with Kane Byrne and Pat Hickey. Sam Todd, is back in the fold again. He's back from his injury, and came on Monday, played at left back. Which we spoke about it in the reaction. Doesn't really work. We saw that against Dundalk. So I think if he is to come back in, it'd be for Kane Byrne maybe. So he can slot back in there alongside Hickey, and they can get back to that really strong partnership that they had in the first series of games. But I don't think Kane Byrne's doing much wrong at the minute. I think he's playing well, so I think I'd probably stick with him. Then going into left back, I'd stick with Flores. I know he didn't complete 90 minutes on Monday when he maybe should have. I think he was doing okay. Was dealing with the threats Rovers were offering from the right, throughout the game, and he comes off. I don't know why. I think you can maybe point towards fitness, but he did play 90 minutes against Galway, so there can't be much wrong with him. So I keep Flores in at left back. Midfield too, then I'm sticking with Diallo and Dawson. I think Diallo's been really good lately. Didn't really have a pre-season, so I think that's probably why it's took him a bit of time to come into the team, and really show us what he's all about. Again, like Flores, probably didn't deserve to come off on Monday. He was tiring a little bit, but was still doing fairly well. And it was the same in Galway. He came off fairly early, and looked fairly disappointed. But when I think he's playing as well as he is now, you've got to allow him to keep it going, and carry on his form, and let him build his fitness up week by week. And obviously Dawson speaks for himself, but moving further forward, I think you're going to see Ross Tierney and Dale Rooney, but who else plays there in the three behind the striker, is another thing really that's up for debate. Connor Parsons played on Monday, and I thought done quite well. He was working hard, he was getting a bill. Harry Vaughan, I thought when he came on, showed a little bit, but I'm really not sure what we're going to do here. If I had to guess, I think maybe we'll see Parsons keep his place, just from what he did when he was on Monday. Really looked up for it, and was pressing really hard. Didn't really do much in terms of, he wasn't creating loads of chances or getting shots away or anything like that. But I just think, with the effort that he showed on Monday, he might keep his place. And then up front, Colin Whelan comes in on Monday and does well. Again, like Parsons, worked hard, didn't create much for himself, but was doing all the right things that you want to see from a Bows player in a derby. And then I think when Dougie came on, I think that kind of messed things up a little bit for us. He just wasn't really showing the same amount of work ethic. So I think just based off what he was able to do on Monday, I think I'm going to stick with Colin Whelan. I didn't think I'd be saying that, especially after what Dougie was able to do when he got back into the team after his injury. Getting the penalty in Dundalk and then scoring in Galway. I felt like maybe he was going to be able to make that number 9 spot his own, but obviously you rotate a little bit maybe with the Friday Monday turnaround, and he came on and maybe just wasn't able to settle into the game. And I wouldn't be shocked to see him start here, but I think Colin Whelan definitely done more on Monday, so I think he deserves to keep his place. After such a disappointing defeat, it'd be easy to come on here and think that the confidence is going to be really low, and the heads will have dropped after a tough defeat to take. But I don't think the players will be feeling that way. Of course, it's always really disappointing to lose a derby, especially in the fashion that we did. But I think if you look at the games beforehand, you could see a team that is full of confidence, and there was nothing really wrong with our performance on Monday. We just didn't take the chances when they failed to us, and obviously that's become a recurring theme that's caused so much frustration. And we really should have put that game to bed before Rovers even got the equaliser. So look, they'll be feeling it, of course. We're feeling it as fans as well, but you can't dwell on it too much. You just have to go again here, and it's another tricky game. But back on the road, we spoke about our away record at the start of the season, how it's up there with one of the best in the league, and we picked up some really good points on the road this season, so we'll be looking to see a continuation of that and get back to winning ways. It doesn't really matter how we do it, we just have to get those 3 points so we can really put Monday to bed and forget about it and move on and look ahead then. So please God, we can deal with that, and I'm hopeful that we can get the win if you can play anything like we have done in the last few weeks. I know, of course, we lose on Monday, but the performance was decent, and then in the games before that as well, we showed a lot of quality. So we need to see a really positive reaction here, and I fancy us to do it. I'm going to go with a 2-1 win as my prediction. Our record in the Showgrounds in recent years has been very good. We've picked up some good results there. Of course, earlier on in the season, like we spoke about, and last season, Milks' late winner, and I think in the year that we were down near the foot of the table. I think it was the only grab we won twice in 2024. So we'll be looking to have another good night there, hopefully, and get the 3 points that can bring a bit of confidence back into us after a really disappointing defeat on Monday night. So that's where I'll end it. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, comment down below your thoughts heading into the game, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.